Zara stood on the cold metal platform, her wrists locked in glowing cuffs. A dozen alien eyes stared at her from below, watching like hungry wolves. The lights above her head were bright, but the room felt dark, dark with fear, pain, and memories. She wanted to forget. She had lost count of how many times she had been sold. But this was different. This was the grand auction, where the worst monsters came to buy humans. She could hear their voices, strange and sharp, speaking in alien tongues. The chains on her ankles glowed red, burning her skin with every small move. Still, she stood tall, even if her body wanted to fall. Her mind kept going back to him, Darrow, the man she once loved, the man she had trusted. He was not just her ex-husband. He was her first and deepest wound. He had promised to protect her, then sold her to alien slavers like she was nothing. A tall alien announcer shouted her name. Human female, strong body, no sickness, no scars. The crowd began to bid. Numbers flashed on the giant screen above them. One bidder, a fat green creature with 3 eyes, waved his hand. Another, tall and red-skinned, raised the bid higher. They were not buying a person. They were buying a toy. Zara kept her face still. She had learned long ago that showing fear only made it worse. She would not give them the satisfaction. Then the room went quiet. A new figure walked in, covered in a dark cloak. He moved slowly but with power, like he didn't care what anyone thought. His face was hidden behind a mask, smooth and black like space. The announcer looked confused but said nothing. The masked man raised one hand and placed a bid 10 times. Higher than anyone else. Gasps filled the auction room. Even the rich alien stopped bidding. The announcer looked around, then nodded quickly. "Sold," he said. To the masked one, Zara was pulled off the platform roughly, her cuffs glowing hotter. She did not resist, but inside her heart raced. Who was this new buyer? Why spend so much on her? As she was brought to him, the masked man said nothing. He just pointed toward his ship, a black vessel with no markings. Zara walked with her head high. Even though every step hurt, the guards shoved her inside, and the doors closed behind them. Ship's inside was quiet, clean, and cold. No chains, no screams, no smells of pain. It felt safe, too safe. Zara narrowed her eyes, waiting for the trick. There was always a trick. The man removed his mask slowly. Underneath it was a face she hadn't seen in years, a human face. His hair was dark short, his eyes sharp but not cruel. His skin was marked with scars, like he had seen many battles. She stepped back, shocked. "You're human," she said, her voice low. "Yes," he replied simply. "Name's Riven." Zara stared at him, unsure if she should feel hope or fear. "Why did you buy me?" she asked. "What do you want?" Riven leaned back against the wall, folding his arms. "Not what you think," he said. "I'm not here to own anyone." Zara didn't trust him. How could she? Every kind word in her life had ended in chains. Riven seemed to read her mind. "I know what he did to you," he said. "Darrow." At that name, her heart jumped. Pain returned, heavy and sharp. Riven continued. "I was sent to kill him years ago, but I found something worse, what he did to you." Zara didn't speak. Tears burned her eyes, but she held them back. She had cried enough. Too many nights in cages, too many days of being silent. Riven stepped closer, but didn't touch her. "I don't want your trust, not yet," he said. "But I promise you this. You are not property. You are not weak. And you will never be sold again." The ship lifted off, leaving the auction planet behind. Zara looked out the small window. Stars blinked in the darkness. Maybe for the first time, freedom wasn't just a dream. But deep inside she wondered, was Riven really here to save her? Or was he just another liar in a human face? Only time would tell. Zara opened her eyes to silence. For a moment she thought she was dead. No chains, no shouting guards, no cold floors, just stillness. She was lying on a soft bed, inside a small cabin lit by a soft blue light. The walls were smooth, metallic, but not prison gray. A folded blanket, clean clothes, even water on a table near her. She sat up slowly, confused. Was this another trick? Another cage dressed as kindness? Then the door opened with a soft hiss. The man in the mask stepped in, quiet as a ghost. But this time he wore no mask. His face was calm, human. His eyes locked onto hers, not with hunger, but with something she hadn't seen in years, respect. You slept for 10 hours, he said, his voice low and steady. Zara didn't reply. She watched him carefully. Where are we? She asked finally. Above the red rings of Volter, he replied. Far from the auction, and far from him. Zara felt her stomach twist at the mention of Indaro. The name still tasted like rust on her tongue. You bought me, she said coldly. What now? Riven didn't move closer. I freed you, he said. No collar, no command, no debt. You're not mine. Zara laughed bitterly. Everyone who's ever said that has hurt me worse than chains. Riven's jaw tightened slightly. I'm not everyone, he said, then added, but I get it. He placed something on the table, a small device, blinking green. It's a key, he said. It opens the escape pod. You want to run? Take it and go. Zara stared at the device, shocked. No one had ever given her a choice before. Not since Darrow took it all away, but she didn't move. Instead, she asked, Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? Riven turned to the window, looking out at the glowing red rings circling the nearby gas planet. I used to be a soldier, he said. Fought in the human core wars. I lost people, saw too much, did worse. When the wars ended, I disappeared. But I started tracking Darrow, even before I knew your name. Why him? Zara asked quietly. Riven looked at her. Because some monsters don't wear fangs, he said. They wear wedding rings. The words cut deep. Zara felt her breath catch, but she didn't cry. She had buried her tears long ago, suddenly. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the walls. Riven turned toward a screen. Tapped something quickly. Trouble? Zara asked, standing, ready to run if needed. Riven nodded. 2 bounty ships on our tail, he said. They were following your tracker. My tracker? She repeated. Riven pointed to the back of her neck. A microchip, deep under the skin, he said. Hidden in the muscle. Zara felt sick. Darrow hadn't just sold her. He had planned to track her, maybe sell her again. Riven grabbed the toolkit. We need to remove it, he said. Now, Zara stepped back. You're not cutting me open. She snapped. Riven didn't argue. He placed the tools on the table and stepped away. Then you do it, he said calmly. I'll walk you through it. Minutes later, Zara sat in the bathroom mirror, Riven beside her, guiding her hands. The pain was sharp, but not worse than what she'd already survived. Finally, a tiny black chip dropped into Riven's hand. He crushed it under his boot. We've bought time, he said. But they'll keep coming. Zara sat back, breathing hard. Why keep helping me? She asked again. Riven didn't answer right away. Then he said something soft, almost too quiet. Because I see who you are. You're not weak, Zara. You're unbroken. She looked at him then. Really looked, not as a buyer, not as a stranger, but as someone who had chosen not to hurt her. Zara whispered, Then don't expect me to be kind. I don't know how to be that anymore. Riven gave a small nod. I'm not here for your kindness, he said. Just your truth. Outside, the stars spun slowly. Inside, something impossible had started to grow. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the seed of it. And deep in the galaxy, far from where they flew, Darrow watched a blinking red dot disappear from his screen. He leaned back with a cold smile. So, he said, she found someone. Let's see how long he lasts. The desert storm howled like a wounded beast. Waves of dust slammed into the ship's hull, rattling the metal with every gust. But inside, everything was still, silent like a grave. Zara sat near a cracked window, watching the orange skies of planet Kirith. The wind outside never stopped, and neither did her thoughts. They were hiding in the ruins of an old alien colony abandoned long ago. Sand had claimed the buildings. Time had erased the names. It was the perfect place to disappear, Riven moved through the wreckage, placing small motion sensors around the perimeter. He returned, his boots covered in red dust, his armor scratched but strong. He dropped a bag of supplies near her feet and said nothing. Zara didn't thank him. She still didn't know how. She had learned survival, not manners, trust, not kindness. Pain had been her teacher, and it taught with fire. You ever been here before? She asked, breaking the silence. Riven shook his head. No, he said. But I fought nearby during the Shadow War. He sat across from her, his eyes focused but calm. Back then, this planet was full of life. Now it's full of ghosts. Zara looked at the broken buildings outside. I don't believe in ghosts, she said. Riven tilted his head slightly. You don't have to, he replied. They believe in you. She frowned, confused. What does that mean? Riven leaned back, looking up at the rusted ceiling. Everyone we've lost, he said. They stay with us. In memories, in dreams, in regrets. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they scream, Zara didn't want to admit it, but she understood. She still saw her sister's face in her dreams, frightened. Reaching out, that memory haunted her more than the beatings. More than Darrow's betrayal. I failed her, Zara whispered, more to herself than to him. I was supposed to protect her. Riven didn't ask questions. He didn't say, it's not your fault or you did your best. He just sat there, listening, and somehow that meant more. They stayed quiet for a long time. The storm outside roared louder, but inside the walls, something soft began to grow. Not peace, but something close. Zara reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal coin, worn, old, and cracked. She rolled it between her fingers. It's the only thing I kept from Earth, she said. My father gave it to me before we left. Riven leaned forward, curious. Earth, he repeated. Haven't heard that name in years. Feels like a myth now, Zara nodded slowly. It was real, she said, and we were happy. Before the ships came. Before. The selling started. Suddenly, a loud beep broke the moment. One of the sensors outside flashed red. Riven was on his feet in seconds. Gun in hand, eyes sharp. Zara stood too, her heart racing. Someone's here, she said. Riven tapped into the camera feed. 3 figures moved through the sand, tall, cloaked, alien. But something was wrong. They weren't looking for cover. They were walking straight toward the ship, like they already knew where it was. Bounty hunters? Zara asked. Riven nodded, loading his weapon. They tracked the ship. He said, not you, which means they're not just after you anymore. They want both of us. He handed her a small blaster. Zara looked at it, then at him. You trust me with this? Riven smirked slightly. You've survived worse than a gun. As the hunters drew closer, Zara crouched beside Riven. Ready, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from something else. A fire that had been buried deep inside her for too long. Now it was waking up. The first shot rang out. A flash of light burned through the dust. Zara ducked, aimed, and fired back. The blaster kicked hard, but she didn't miss. They fought side by side, like they had trained together for years. Zara's breath came fast, but her focus was clear. Every scream outside reminded her she was alive. Every shot she fired told the universe she was not done. When it was over, 3 bodies lay in the sand. Zara stepped over them slowly, her gun still warm. Riven stood beside her, quiet, watching. Okay? He asked. She nodded. I think so. Then she looked at the horizon and whispered, They're going to keep coming, aren't they? Riven didn't lie. Yes, he said. Until we stop them. Zara looked up at him, the wind lifting. Her hair, she didn't smile, not yet, but she stood taller than before. For the first time in years, she wasn't just running. She was fighting, and maybe, just maybe, she was starting to believe in something again. Even if it was only herself. Asterisk, the music was soft, classical, and slow. But the screams in the background ruined the beauty. Darrow didn't mind. He sipped a glowing red drink as a human servant begged quietly from behind a glass wall. He tapped on the screen, increasing the volume of the suffering like it was part of the song. Art, he whispered to himself, comes from control around him. The palace was alive with luxury crystal walls, floating lights, servants who couldn't speak. He was no longer a man, not in the way he had once been. He was something colder, crueler, a collector of pain, a dealer of bodies, and business was booming. He stood and walked to a console where a map of the galaxy blinked with glowing red dots. Each dot was a human he had sold, tracked, or traded. Each one was once someone's sister, mother, daughter. He zoomed into one blinking area now dark. The tracker signal was gone. Zara had vanished. He didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled. Someone found her. He said to himself, "Good. It's more fun when they fight back." He pressed a button, and a new face appeared on the screen. A four-eyed alien bounty lord, skin like broken glass. "Send the hounds," Darrow ordered. "I want her alive." "And the man with her?" The alien nodded, hissing. "Dead or breathing?" Darrow chuckled. "Let him breathe," he said. "Just enough to watch." Far across the galaxy, Zara stood in front of a broken mirror. She touched the small cut on her cheek from the last fight. It didn't hurt, but it reminded her this time she had fought back. This time she wasn't sold. She chose to stay. Riven sat on the floor beside a fire made from alien fuel cells. He was cleaning his gun, but his mind was somewhere else. Zara turned to him. "Do you think he knows?" she asked. Riven looked up. "He will," he said. "Men like Darrow don't forget things they believe they own." Zara swallowed hard. She hated how true that felt. Even now, she could hear Darrow's voice in her head, charming, lying, laughing. He had once called her his forever, then sold her like trash. She sat beside Riven, silent for a moment. "I want to stop running," she said. "I want to burn it all." Riven didn't smile, but there was pride in his eyes. "Then we burn it together," he said. Just then, a buzzing noise filled the air. Zara looked up, confused. "It's not the sensors," she said. "It's something else." Riven pulled a small black box from his jacket, a communication cube. The screen lit up with static, then a video feed. A shaky recording played. A small girl, no older than 10, sat in a cage, crying. Behind her, a familiar voice spoke, cold and smooth. "Zara," Darrow said, "I hope you're watching. You took something from me, your loyalty, so I took something too." Zara's blood went cold. She stepped closer to the screen. The child in the cage had her mother's eyes. Zara gasped. "Lena," she whispered, "my sister's daughter." Darrow continued. "If you want her back," he said, "come to Verrex Station. Alone." The screen went dark. Zara's hands shook. She had barely known if her sister was still alive. Now her niece was a prisoner, a message, a trap. "I have to go," she said. Standing, now Riven stood too, his face hard. "No," he said. "He wants you to come alone, so he can break you." Zara turned to him, eyes fierce. "Then let him try," she said. "He took everything from me. Riven, my childhood, my sister, my worth. I won't let him take her too." Riven nodded slowly. "Then we plan," he said. "We hit him where it hurts." Zara walked to the map, tapping into the system Darrow once used. Each red dot, each enslaved human, was there. They were all still wearing trackers, all still trapped. Riven looked at her. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Zara replied, her voice steady. "We free them," she said. "All of them." In the deep shadows of the galaxy, a storm was coming. Zara was no longer just a survivor. She was becoming something Darrow never expected. The human screams were silent now, muted through the vacuum of space. Zara stood at the edge of a broken station window, staring at the wreckage of a slave ship floating just beyond, one of Darrow's. She had watched it explode 10 minutes ago, fire blooming in the cold black like a flower of rage. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something deeper, something dangerous. She wasn't just angry, she was done. Behind her, the rebel outpost was alive with whispers. Humans in ragged clothes stared at her as she walked past, some with hope, others with doubt. To them, she was just another ex-slave. But rumors traveled faster than light, and now they whispered her name like a spark. She broke her chains. She killed a buyer with her own hands. She fights with a masked human ghost. Zara didn't care what they believed, only what she had to do. She entered the war room, where Riven stood over a holomap of Darrow's trade routes. He looked up as she entered, but didn't smile. He knew the fire in her eyes now. He had it once too. "He's spreading," Riven said, pointing to a glowing line on the map. "His ships are hitting smaller colonies, quiet ones. No one powerful enough to fight back." Zara clenched her fists. "He's getting ready," she said. "He knows I'm coming." Riven nodded. "Good," he replied. "Let him prepare. He still doesn't understand what's coming for him." Just then, an old rebel commander stepped in, gray hair, scars across his neck. He looked Zara up and down with tired eyes. "So, you're the fire everyone's talking about," he said. "You've got guts, girl, I'll give you that. But this fight? This isn't just personal, it's war." Zara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Then I'll lead it," she said. "I've bled under his rule, lost my family, lost myself. I've burned in silence. Now I burn for something." The room went quiet. The commander raised an eyebrow. "Lead?" he asked. "What makes you think you're ready for that?" Zara didn't flinch. She reached into her jacket and tossed a small metal box onto the table. The lights inside blinked red tracker signals, all shut down. "I've already freed 42 humans," she said. "I have names, locations, weapons, and I have something Darrow doesn't." She leaned in close, her voice like a blade. "Nothing left to lose." The commander stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled slowly. "All right," he said. "Let's see what your fire can do." That night, the rebels prepared. Old weapons were pulled from crates. Ships were patched, soldiers trained. But more than tools, what Zara gave them was belief. She walked among them, not as a symbol, not as a savior, but as someone who had felt what they felt. Chains on her wrists, sorrow in her soul, and fire in her heart. She trained harder than anyone. She didn't ask them to follow her. She earned it. Riven watched her from a distance, arms crossed. He saw it now, something he hadn't dared to believe. Zara was no longer running from her pain. She was using it as fuel. She was becoming what the galaxy hadn't seen in a long time, a human leader who couldn't be bought. Later, as the stars lit up the outpost sky, Zara and Riven stood alone on the rooftop. She looked tired, but not weak. The fire burned steady now. "What if we fail?" she asked, her voice soft. Riven didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out at the stars and said, "Then we fail standing, not crawling. And they'll know we were never his." Zara nodded, her voice steady. "Tomorrow we strike," she said. "We hit his shipyards, free the slaves, burn the maps." Riven looked at her. Not like a soldier looks at a commander, but like a man looking at someone who had done the impossible. "You're not the girl from the auction anymore," he said. Zara met his gaze, her eyes burning like twin stars. "I was never just the girl," she said. "I was always the match." Far away, in the heart of his palace, Darrow watched another red signal disappear from his screen. He sipped his drink, but his hand shook slightly. The echoes of betrayal were getting louder, and this time, they were coming for him. Asterisk, the stars didn't twinkle near Vurek Station. They blinked cold and silent, like eyes watching something terrible about to happen. Zara stood at the edge of the rebel dropship, staring at the giant space fortress ahead. Its surface was black, sharp like a knife, glowing red from within. Darrow's stronghold, a place where screams were currency, and mercy was extinct. She didn't blink, didn't speak, not even when the alarms buzzed softly inside her headgear. Behind her, Riven checked the weapons pack, voice steady in her come. "In and out, 15 minutes max," he said. Once we're inside, I'll jam external signals. You'll go for the prison level. I'll go for the power core. Zara nodded without turning. My niece is in there, she said quietly. I saw her face. She still had hope in her eyes. Riven's voice dropped softer. Then let's make sure she keeps it. The ship jolted as it entered the station's magnetic grip. Lights flickered, engines hummed low. Zara's pulse stayed even. She had come too far to be afraid now. As they stepped into the docking corridor, Zara could feel it, the cold metal beneath her boots. The scent of sterilized death in the air. It wasn't fear, not anymore, it was focus. Guards passed by without noticing, fooled by the stolen armor she wore. But the closer she got to the prison block, the harder her hands shook, not from nerves, but from memory. She had once walked these halls in chains. Now she returned as fire. Meanwhile, far below, Darrow watched through surveillance feeds. He sipped dark wine. His eyes narrowed at the screen showing Zara's face in a helmet. He leaned back in his throne-like chair. She came, he said, like I knew she would. Beside him stood the bounty hunter lord, armored in spikes and shadows. She won't leave, the alien hissed. Darrow smiled coldly. I hope not, he said. The best flames only burn once. Zara reached the holding level, bypassed the main guards, and entered cell block 3. It was quiet, too quiet. Prisoners lay silent in glowing cages, their eyes dull, their souls thin. Zara walked quickly, scanning the numbers. And then she stopped. Cell 27. A small girl sat, curled on the floor, her hair a mess, her arms wrapped around her knees. Lena, Zara whispered, stepping closer. The girl looked up slowly, eyes wide, unsure, scared. Zara removed her helmet and knelt. It's me, she said gently. You're Aunt Zara. For a moment, the child didn't move. Then she crawled forward and wrapped her arms tightly around Zara. I knew you'd come, she whispered. Zara held her, heart breaking. You're safe now, she said. I swear. Suddenly, alarms exploded through the station. Red lights flashed, sirens howled, and a robotic voice shouted, Intruder detected. Breach in core chamber. Zara's cum buzzed. Riven's voice came through, sharp and breathless. They know I'm here, he said. They're sealing the exits. You need to move now. Zara picked up Lena and bolted down the hall, her stolen keycard slicing open doors. But as she turned a corner, a wall of armed guards stood waiting, weapons aimed, and behind them, stepping through the shadows, Darrow. He looked exactly the same, handsome, polished, fake. But his eyes were different now, colder, crueler, proud. Zara, he said, smiling like they were old friends. You brought the war to me. Zara set Lena gently behind her, shielding her with her own body. You brought it to yourself, she said, voice like ice. Darrow laughed. You should have stayed sold, he said. You were easier to control that way. You're not a soldier, you're a story. A sad, tragic, forgettable one. Zara didn't blink. She looked at Lena, then back at Darrow. You're wrong, she said. I'm the ending. Then she threw the small flash bomb Riven gave her. Light burst like a mini-star, blinding the hallway. Zara grabbed Lena and ran, heart pounding, footsteps echoing with purpose. Down near the core, Riven was fighting alone, taking hits, blasting guards. His face was bloodied, but his eyes never wavered. He had set the core to overload a timed burn to destroy the station if they didn't make it out. Zara and Lena arrived seconds before the countdown began. Riven pulled them into the emergency chute, sealed the hatch and launched the pod behind them. The station trembled, cracking apart. Zara watched it vanish through the window, the place where she had lost everything, now falling into fire, but her hand stayed tight around Lena's. Because now she hadn't just escaped. She had rescued, she had fought, and most of all, she had chosen. The stars looked different now, brighter, softer, more alive. Or maybe it wasn't the stars that had changed. Maybe it was Zara. The escape pod floated silently above the remains of Vurek Station. Its twisted metal and fire trails now drifted. In the endless dark, Daro's empire burned, broken, and left to rot. Zara sat beside her niece, Lena. Wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, the child was asleep. Breathing steady for the first time in days, Zara brushed her hair back gently, her hands still trembling from the fight. But this time, it wasn't fear, it was the weight of something. New freedom. Across the pod, Riven sat on the floor, head leaned back, eyes closed. Bruised, bloodied, exhausted, but alive. He opened one eye as he felt her looking. "You did it," he said quietly. Zara shook her head. "We did." A soft beeping broke the silence. The pod's navigation system lit up the rebel fleet. Had found them. They were safe. Zara finally exhaled, like it was the first breath she'd taken in years. 3 days later, the rebel camp welcomed her like a storm. Zara stepped off the ship carrying Lena, while rebels clapped, saluted, and bowed their heads. But she didn't walk like a hero. She walked like a woman who had been through fire and kept walking. Children ran to her, pulling at her sleeves, asking questions. "Did you really fight? Daro? Did you really destroy the station? Are you the girl from the auction?" Zara kneeled down, looking one of them in the eyes. "I was," she said, "but not anymore." That evening, the leaders of the rebellion gathered. They offered Zara a command position, medals, a name in the galaxy's new history. She listened quietly, then spoke only one word. "No." They blinked, confused. "You don't want a title?" One of them asked. Zara smiled softly. "I don't want to lead from a chair," she said. "I want to lead from the ground. I want to build what Daro tried to destroy, not for power, but for people." She looked at Riven, who stood quietly in the corner, always watching, always waiting. "I've seen what fear can do," she said. "Now I want to teach them what love can become." Later that night, she found Riven alone near the edge of the rebel outpost. He was staring at a glowing field of alien grass, watching it move in waves under the wind. She walked up slowly, standing beside him. "You're leaving, aren't you?" she asked. He nodded. "I was never meant to stay," he said. "I'm a soldier, Zara, a ghost of old wars." She stepped in front of him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then stay as something else," she said. "Stay as a man. Stay as yourself." Riven looked at her, his eyes unreadable. "I've never been anyone's something," he said. Zara reached for his hand and held it gently. "Then be mine," she said. "Not because I need saving, but because I don't." There was silence. Then Riven nodded once, and it was enough. Months passed. Zara became a builder, a speaker, a protector. She and Riven helped create safe zones across star systems. They freed slaves, dismantled old markets, and gave names back to the nameless. Children knew her face. Rebels wore her symbol. And slowly, quietly, a new galaxy began to rise, not built on control, but choice. Lena grew stronger under Zara's care. She no longer cried at night. She trained with other children, learned stories of Earth, and drew pictures of stars. Once, she showed one of her drawings to Zara. It was a small girl in chains, beside a tall woman made of fire. Underneath it, she had written, "My aunt is fire, but she holds me like water." Zara smiled through her tears for the first time. Her past didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a shadow she had outgrown. One evening, as 2 moons rose above the horizon, Zara stood on a quiet cliff with Riven. He placed something in her hand, a coin, worn and faded, just like hers. "I kept this from Earth," he said. "Same as you." Zara looked at it, her hand closing around it. "Maybe Earth isn't a place," she said. "Maybe it's something we carry. Something we pass on." They stood there in silence. 2 humans, once broken, now whole, not perfect, not healed but human. Human, after all.